Hello and welcome to the Comic Cave. I'm Ramsey, aka Captain Away, and today I'm looking at the 2008 and 2015 series, Captain America White. Writer Jeph Loeb and artist Tim Sale made quite a name for themselves working together on some DC series including Batman, The Long Halloween, Superman for All Seasons, and Catwoman, When in Rome. Ha! You thought that last one would be a Wonder Woman comic, didn't you? Because that would be the logical next step. But no, it was Catwoman. So, there you go. When they came to Marvel, they made a similar splash with the Color series, which leading up to this included Daredevil, Yellow, Spider-Man, Blue, and Hulk, Gray. All of which I'm sure I'll cover at a later date, but right now I'm skipping straight to the end. Because it's July 4th, Independence Day here in the States, and I guess that means I cover a Captain America comic. I don't know, just roll with it. Each of the Color titles focused on a story from early in each of those characters' careers, and particularly on their interactions with their primary love interest of the time. Captain America White then would be a little bit of a standout. It would be set in the early days of Cap's career, focusing on his earliest participation in World War II, but Cap had no love interest for them to focus on. At least no female love interest. Instead, the comic is entirely focused on the relationship between Cap and Bucky. It's also a standout because it took 7 years to complete, with the first issue, or really the zero issue, coming out in 2008, and the rest of the series coming out rather rapidly towards the end of 2015. Hence why I said 2008 and 2015 in the intro. I do things for a reason. So do Sale and Loeb continue to bring the magic after a 7-year break? Well, let's light this firecracker to find out and take this away. The comic opens on the movies!
That's right, movie lovers, it's the Sentinel of Liberty himself, Captain America! What great news from the fans is there tonight about the latest achievements of America's greatest hero? And who's that in the theater? Why, it's the man himself, Steve Rogers!
I'm not gonna try to do that voice the whole video. Basically, yeah, Steve and his teen pal, James Buchanan, got some leave time to go out to the movies, which quickly establishes a number of things. First, that the two are both in the military. Second, that Steve-O is already the good captain. And that Jimmy Jam James here doesn't know that his buddy Steve is also his hero, Captain America. But that will change soon enough when young James comes to Steve's tent in the middle of the night and finds him changing into his Captain America uniform. I know this is a reference to when this happened in the first issue of Captain America comics, even recreating the look of the original panel where it happened, but there also doesn't seem to be an actual in-story reason why Steve is getting dressed up in his Cap outfit here. He just kinda does it? And why is he even in this training camp in America if we know he's already been shown fighting overseas? I know that's what happened in the original Captain America comics, but it doesn't make much sense to me, at least, especially since once he ships back overseas in this series, he's there for the rest of the comic. So it doesn't seem like it even follows its own internal logic. But whatever, I guess. James freaks out and runs away, but once Cap catches up to him, he agrees to train his young friend in secret. And when they propose the idea to Washington of Captain America having a teenage sidekick, apparently the powers that be like the idea so much that they even send a uniform for James. So James, who doesn't like being called James, gets dressed up and announces that from now on, he'll be called Bucky, like the beaver. That's a joke for you Texans out there. It's spelled differently, but whatever. So Cap and Bucky ship off overseas and immediately get to punching some Nazis, like every damn American should. This is great news for Bucky, who very much wanted to be a part of the war, despite Steve repeatedly warning him that real action is nothing like in the movies. Their mission brings them to North Africa, where they pull Nick Fury's ass out of the fire, though grumpy young Sergeant Fury is less than grateful. In fact, he and Dum Dum Dugan steal Cap's motorcycle and leave the pair behind. They don't take to Cap's alter ego any better, with Dugan initiating a brawl with Steve and the rest of the Howling Commandos at a bar later that night. since Steve looked a little too Aryan for Dugan's liking. I mean, he is the cream of the crop, and the cream is white. Despite that, orders are orders, and soon Fury, the Commandos, Cap, and Bucky are all on a plane to France. They don't quite make it though, being shot down over the ocean by a completely unseen assailant. It's not important, I'm sure. Cap gets knocked out during the fall and nearly drowns. Bucky dives down after him despite Fury's warnings and does manage to rescue him, though he is forced to cut the straps on Cap's shield and leave it behind in order to do so. But don't worry, he gets it back almost immediately when Namor shows up from out of nowhere, picks it up, and tosses it back to Cap. So that was a very important plot point. After the group makes landfall, they're almost immediately ambushed and captured by some Nazis. But despite the crazy amount of guns, and even a tank barrel pointing at them, all the group needed to do, apparently, was fight back, and the Nazis just fall like dominoes. I guess those Nazis have accuracy that makes stormtroopers look like sharpshooters. Fury and his men are ready to throw the Nazis off a cliff, but Cap has other ideas, not wanting to kill anyone. So instead he ties up the Nazis in the forest and has Fury and his men dress up in their uniforms in order to pull the old Wookiee prisoner routine. Cap ends up getting quote-unquote rescued from Fury's fake Nazis by some French resistance fighters. This group, calling themselves the Cirque de la Revolution, includes leader Merlin. I cannot do a French accent, you guys. She's a lady. And fights with scarves and will more or less serve as a love interest for Cap. The comic won't focus on it at all, but, you know, they wanted to make it clear that he's not gay for Bucky, so a lady. The troupe also includes a mime, a couple acrobats, and Batroc the Lipa. I'm not kidding about the French accent thing. This isn't the Batroc we would know, though, but his grandfather, Olivier. The French fighters lead our American heroes through the sewers of France to show everyone just why we're all here. Because currently, France is occupied by none other than the Red Skull. The good guys return to the French resistance base to make plans, and their Cap asks Marilyn to repair the cut straps on his shield and attempts, rather poorly, to get her to like him. The comic never directly comes out and states it, I don't think, but it heavily emphasizes that Cap is a virgin at this point. Bucky and Cap even had a fight about it earlier, though Bucky calls him 4F. That's actually a reference to how at one point Steve was rejected from the army for not being physically fit enough to serve, which is what the 4F actually is. But the implication that it means Steve has failed to serve in other ways is pretty potent. Still, apparently expecting something to actually happen, Bucky was spying through the keyhole on Cap and Marilyn. But Cap catches him, accidentally blackening his eye by opening the door straight on him, and, worst of all, calling him James. Bucky feels like Cap is becoming like a disapproving dad that has lost faith in him, whereas they used to be more like friends. Those of you who are only movie fans might not realize that in the comics, Bucky was Cap's teenage sidekick, and was often portrayed as being a lot younger than Cap. For this story, LOEB and Sale really wanted to emphasize that there wasn't a lot of difference in age between the two, as Steve was freshly enlisted, so probably at most early 20s, and Bucky was probably about 14 or so, which is why Cap's disapproval bothers Bucky so much. Bucky sees them as nearly equals, while he's worried Cap no longer sees him as a friend, but instead a responsibility. Batroc the Lipa reveals that he's learned of a planned attack on the Louvre. And though Fury has his doubts about why the Nazis would even bother, Cap and Marilyn convince him to go investigate. Only when they arrive at the museum, Cap discovers that Bucky has run off, deciding to go after Red Skull by himself. So Cap splits from the rest of the group, leaving them to fall into a twap! Yes, it seems that Batroc the Lipa, playing to type, sold them all out to the Nazis. Baron von Strucker promised Batroc that he only wanted the Americans and would let the French go. But now he reveals that that was never going to happen, and he plans to send the entire circus group to Auschwitz. In frustration, Batroc attacks Strucker, which gets him shot, but gives the others the opportunity to overpower and capture the Nazis. always that simple, you guys. Cap, meanwhile, goes after the Red Skull by himself, who has of course captured Bucky, and planted hundreds of explosives around the Eiffel Tower. Red Skull takes Bucky and escapes by Zeppelin, but Cap follows him by driving a motorcycle up the Eiffel Tower. Why not? Skull and Cap fight on top of the Zeppelin, where Skull threatens to blow them all up with a dynamite vest. But Bucky uses a knife to cut open the blimp, giving Cap the chance to knock Skull into the blimp, where Skull explodes the whole thing while Cap and Bucky leap to safety. With a Superman reference of all things. Why not? They're saved by a circus tent as the rest of the group has caught up with them by now. Despite having run off during the mission, Cap's actions have somehow still earned him the respect of both Marilyn, with whom he shares his first kiss, and Sergeant Fury, though their parting is a little less romantic. I feel like they should have just done the same thing. I mean, it would have been fitting. Bucky and Cap then ride off into the sunset, and we return to the present, where modern-day Nick Fury and Cap take a trip to Arlington Cemetery, where a statue of Cap and Bucky have been placed in their honor. Steve can't stand having the statue there since he's actually alive, and he destroys his own statue, leaving just Bucky's, then drives off again into the sunset while missing his friend. Don't worry, Cap, he's just about to come back too. And that's all there is to the comic, so let's get to the breakdown. I know the team of LOEB and Sale is pretty well regarded, but I've honestly never been that much of a fan of either of them. I find LOEB's writing to be rather empty. Just a lot of surface level talk and concepts with little in the way of interesting subtlety or depth. And I think that rings extra true here. The whole idea behind the Colors series is to focus on a color that is important to the story being told, but even that I feel is a tenuous connection at best. The simple concept is that Cap largely sees the world as black and white, with America being the white hat heroes of the movies, even after repeatedly telling Bucky that war in real life isn't like it is in the movies. And kind of the lesson he learns by the end is that the good and bad, or white and black, of it all is less important to him than the life of his friend. Which I guess was all the character growth we needed to get these other guys to respect him. And I know that a lot of this comic is a send-up to the early Kirby days of Captain America comics, but in a story where the literal point is that real war is a lot more hellish than it is in the movies, or the comic books you might say, all the Nazi enemies of the series prove to be comically inept. And there's a lot of G.I. Joe style whomping of the bad guys with little to no effort, no matter how outnumbered, outgunned, and captured the quote-unquote good guys are. And I feel Sale's visuals have that exact same problem. There's some overall great ragged noir style to it that on occasion looks actually fantastic, but there's also a lot of sort of Saturday morning cartoon balloonishness to it as well, with character proportions all over the place and a lot of the action just perplexing. And there's shots like this. I don't care who you are, that's gotta look bad. Perhaps this comic is just most heard by coming after Ed Brubaker's bleak run on Captain America, which did a much better job of updating the identities of Cap and Bucky, or even after Captain America / Black Panther Flags of Our Fathers, which told pretty much the same story but was, at least in my opinion, a much more enjoyable comic. So I'm giving this series a recommendation level of low. I'll save comparing it to the others in the Colors series for now, but I will say that out of all the Captain America stories out there, this would definitely be among the last I would say you need to get to. The collected edition gets 1. Captain America's Mighty Shield. Come on, you know I can't not make that reference. And that is, of course, a good thing. Whatever I feel about the comic, it's a great collection. All 6 issues are here, plus some bonus covers, an introduction from the scriptwriters for Captain America: The First Avenger, and a massive sketchbook in the back that includes a maybe too long interview with LOEB and Sale. Now go punch some Nazis! Don't actually punch anyone. I don't encourage punching people, just, light some firecrackers or something. Be the hero, not the villain. Thanks everybody for watching, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Happy 4th of July to all my fellow Americans out there. I'll be getting right back to more New 52 Batman after this, so if you're excited about that, or if you like this video, or you're just a cool person who does cool things, then make sure to hit the like and the subscribe and all that jazz so you can be sure to be around next time, and I hope to see you then, right here, in the Comic Cave.